Scarface is one of the best action films ever made, and for good reason. Everything from the soundtrack to the pacing to the iconic ending all the way to Al Pacino's explosive performance just make this film an all-time great classic. Scarface is truly a timeless masterpiece. However, if there's one thing that makes it stand out from other generic action films, it's the deep-layered writing and moral complexity of Tony Montana. A poor Cuban foreigner nearly getting sawed in half for a green card to having a dang tiger in the back of his mansion is one perfectly executed arc. Scarface truly masters the rags to riches narrative while also leading it into a realistic direction. Today we will be watching Scarface and analyzing how Tony Montana masters all three acts of the character arc: the setup, the conflict, and the resolution. Spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the movie. There's going to be some heavy spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to get spoiled, feel free to click off now. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can keep putting out this kind of content.
¿Cómo se llama?
Antonio Montana. And you? What you call yourself?
We first meet Tony as one of 125,000 Cuban foreigners dropped off in Miami in the infamous Mariel boat lift under Fidel Castro's regime. At this point on, he's broke, hungry, and a desperate opportunist willing to do whatever it takes just for a green card. He's questioned by the authorities and then dropped off at one of the refugee detention centers also known as Freedom Town. It is there Tony and his friend Manny find out that a former Cuban official named Emilio Rebenga, who betrayed Castro, is in Freedom Town, and they are offered a green card in exchange of taking him out. Tony, needing that green card, is very hungry for the long-awaited opportunity.
I kill a communist for fun, but for a green card, I'm gonna carve him up real nice.
Absolutely ice cold. Nonetheless, a riot breaks out within Freedom Town, and Tony strikes on the opportunity, shanking Rebenga, and is rewarded his green card. Shortly after, Tony and Manny land a job as dishwashers at a local sandwich shop, which obviously doesn't sit well with Tony.
I didn't come to the United States to break my fucking back, mijo.
After this, they end up meeting an associate for a drug kingpin named Omar Suarez, who offers them jobs unloading a boat of weed for $500 each. Tony, however, feels undervalued and makes a ballsy move, calling out Omar right to his face. They get in a minor exchange before Omar offers him a bigger job handling a cocaine deal with a Colombian drug lord at a motel, the payout being $5 grand each. It is up to this point we learn Tony is a hungry risk-taker, willing to do whatever it takes to get where he wants to be. The writing establishes this perfectly to the viewer and makes no mistakes whatsoever. Nonetheless, Tony and his crew visit the motel. Him and his cousin walk up to proceed with the deal. They enter the motel and things feel off from the start, with Tony and the Colombian going back and forth before it's revealed it was a setup all along to steal the money and kill Tony and his cousin. They get taken to the bathroom where they're interrogated with a chainsaw. Tony doesn't budge and watches his cousin get brutally sawed to death in an infamous scene. It looks like Tony is going to be next until Manny and freaking Bruno Mars come in guns blazing. The Colombian tries to escape until Tony chases him down and executes him in broad daylight. Tony and his crew escape with not only the money but the cocaine as well, impressing the kingpin. Okay, so now that we've concluded with the setup of the film, what has the writing made clear about our main character? 1. It's evident that Tony is a hungry risk-taker. He's not afraid to do the hard things if it means getting where he needs to be. Whether that be standing up for his value to dangerous associates or throwing himself in the middle of chaos to impress his boss, Tony is not afraid to do what's challenging or considered frightening to get where he needs to be. 2. Tony absolutely despises authority figures. He heavily dislikes the idea of having orders given to him, whether it's border patrol, minimum wage bosses, or drug associates. Tony, even early on the film, shows he does not like taking orders. 3. Lastly, Tony has a deep sense of loyalty compared to others in the criminal underworld. He came to Cuba with the same crew, got out of Freedom Town with that crew, and got into the game with that crew. He never abandons his men regardless of how much obstacles they face together. He is hungry, yet loyal, and will never trade that in for anything. Now let's see how all this progresses headed into Act 2, the conflict.
Hey, Tony Montana.
Mr. Lopez, it's a real pleasure.
Would you call me Frank?
Shortly after the cocaine deal, Tony and Manny end up meeting the kingpin himself, Frank Lopez, who is impressed by Tony and how he pulled things off. He assures Tony that he will stay protected and valued by the crew as long as he stays loyal to Lopez. It is there Tony sees Frank's wife Elvira, who he already eyes up on day one. Shortly after, Frank sends Tony and Omar to Bolivia to meet with Sosa, a major drug supplier in the game. They chat for a bit before Tony is shown Omar hanging from a helicopter by his neck. It is revealed that Omar was a snitch, who was working with the FBI as an informant gathering evidence on people in the game. This then has Sosa questioning Tony on where his true intentions lie. Tony makes it very clear he's nothing like Omar.
I never fucked anybody over in my life. Didn't have it coming to me. You got that? All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one.
Spoken like a true gangster, Tony earns Sosa's respect and then sets up a major deal with Sosa to distribute his cocaine in large quantities in the U.S. without Frank's approval. Tony returns to the U.S. and breaks the news to Frank, who's furious that Tony went behind his back. Frank starts to see Tony as reckless, but Tony becomes more calm, cocky, and confident as things play out.
Fuck Gaspar Gomez and fuck the fucking Diaz brothers! Fuck them all! I buried those cockroaches!
Later, at a club, Tony starts flirting with Frank's wife, putting his arm around her before Frank walks over and orders him to disappear. Tony refuses challenging Frank's authority, and after a brief back and forth, Frank walks away, leaving Elvira and Tony be. Shortly after Frank hires the Diaz brothers to take out Tony in the middle of the club, it backfires as Tony fights back and survives the assassination attempt. Later on, Tony, Manny, and a corrupt cop named Mel are back at Frank's place when Frank arrives. Tony, already finding out it was him who ordered the hit, puts Frank's in his place. Frank cowardly begs for his life, getting on his knees pleading before Tony orders Manny to execute him. Tony then ties up loose ends, taking out Mel. Frank's bodyguard Ernie thinks he's going to be next before Tony makes a shocking offer.
You want a job, Ernie? Sure, Tony. Okay, then you call me tomorrow.
With Frank out of the picture, Tony goes to pick up Elvira and marries her. From that point on, he's running the drug trade, living in a huge mansion, delivering more money to the banks than they can hold, and living exactly like the G he imagined himself as. In the midst of the early 80s, Tony is living the full-on American dream. Coming a long way from a broke foreigner coming off a boat, shortly after it becomes evident that Tony's success is engulfing him, causing a distaste in his relationships with his wife and friends. Tony deflects, stating it was him that got him here all along and he's the only one he can trust. Tony later travels to Bolivia to meet with Sosa, who tells him about some urgent news. A journalist in the UN is publicly speaking out against Sosa, exposing him for being a drug trafficker. Tony is ordered to assassinate him by planting a bomb on his car in New York City with the help of his men. Tony agrees. Later in New York, when the bomb is planted, Tony and Sosa's associate Alberto watch waiting for the journalist to enter the car. Everything is going according to plan until Tony realizes the journalist's wife and kids are riding with him in the car. Tony is instantly reluctant, but Alberto does not care as he's waiting for the right time to set off the bomb. Tony tries to talk him out of it, but when he realizes Alberto won't budge, he shoots him in the head before the bomb can be set off, sparing not only the journalist, but his wife and kids. This single incident sets up the conflict for the rest of the film. So what have we learned about Tony in the second act of his arc? 1. He is perfectly comfortable in violence and is willing to kill anyone who he deems a threat, whether it's Frank, the Diaz brothers, or Alberto. If he wants you dead, he will not think twice before pulling the trigger. 2. As seen with the assassination attempt and his wife Elvira, he has a deep, soft spot for the innocents. Those not already in the game, he does everything in his power to make sure they don't get crossed up in it. He's a killer, but still has some code of morality in him, never going beyond it. 3. He achieves everything he's wished for, yet it still doesn't fulfill him. Tony's achieved the pinnacle of the American dream, owning the drug trade, marrying his dream girl and living in a big mansion, but it still doesn't fulfill the emptiness as his relationships grow thinner. Let's see how Tony's amazing arc wraps up after the New York job failed.
How dare you talk to me like that?
Tony and Elvira get into a verbal dispute in the middle of a restaurant before Elvira storms off. Both of them are very coked up, showcasing Tony's mental stability falling through the chaos of the underworld. They then head home where Tony gets a call from Sosa, who's furious about how the New York job went. Sosa calls him out and Tony loses it on Sosa.
Hey, who the fuck do you think you're talking to, huh? You wanna fuck? Who the fuck do you think I have to fucking tell, boy?
Tony then goes to look for his sister, who he finds out is at a big mansion. He knocks on the door and he's greeted by his friend Manny, who happens to be with his sister, revealing they were married. Tony, coked up and furious, shoots Manny dead and picks up his sister back to his place. When they arrive, Sosa's men raid Tony's mansion to take him out for failing the job. They hit Tony's sister and barrage everything in sight. Tony, coked up and under heavy pressure, grabs his machine gun and delivers this iconic movie line.
Say hello to my little friend!
Tony fights for his life, shooting at Sosa's men with everything he has. He takes many of them out before his gun runs out of ammo. Tony still stands tall, absorbing bullets and laughing in the face of death. He feels untouchable until a dude with a shotgun pulls up behind him and takes him out from the back, dropping him into his fountain as the film ends. Truly one of the greatest endings in cinema. So with this movie concluded, what have we unraveled from Tony's arc? Firstly, every character arc must follow a simple 3-level structure within acts. Act 1 must include the setup for the film and where the character intend to go within the story. Act 2 must include the conflict, the obstacles the character faces that help him progress and develop as a character as the film goes on. And Act 3 must include the resolution, the conclusion of how all the events within the story wrap up for the character. Scarface masters this structure perfectly, giving us a well-written rise and fall story behind Tony Montana. The beginning of the film coming to America as a broke foreigner with no money, to becoming a trusted associate scoring deals with big-time kingpins, to becoming the full-fledged drug lord we know in the final act, achieving the pinnacle of success. Scarface introduces the setup, provides conflict and obstacles through the goals, and wraps everything up perfectly in the final cut. A true screenwriter's masterclass from the writers of Scarface. So what do we learn from this film? We learn that if you want to write a character who has a compelling arc, you must master the 3-act structure and use it to the character's advantage. The character by the end of the film must be a completely different person from the one you started with. Study it, master it, and use it to your advantage when writing your character. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe so we can keep putting out content like this. Every bit of engagement helps. If you wish to have a script written, visit our link in bio and get your own movie, short film, or video written today. First-time buyers get a 50% discount.